Welcome to Under Construction with Chapman Building. Today our topic of conversation is building and how important the planning is surrounding building. Welcome, Jason.
Hello, man. It's nice to see you again.
And you. So, I want to build a house. Where do we start?
So, you touched on it. The deep breath was because it is a process. Okay, so prepare yourself for the process. You start by planning. So architects and other professionals are going to be required. So if you've got a vacant plot, then you're going to obviously need a full new design, or if you've got an existing house, you need to come up with something that can be added and adjusted or renovated without sort of changing and looking like an add-on or an adjustment. So you want continuity with roof and other areas, other finishes, so that it makes the finished product look like it's always been there.
Yes.
So basically planning is very important. You need to get hold of a professional architect, or if you're doing a renovation, an interior designer preferably. What a lot of people do is they piggyback on the contractor and his knowledge and experience or what have you, and they specify or give their list of what they want, and so the project continues. So that does work. However, if you are not 100% sure about what you want, if you don't know materials or the industry very, very well, to get an architect or an interior designer would be your best option, and it would be money well spent, because instead of your hours, if you take your hourly rates and you think about what it costs for you to go and now learn a whole nother industry to service your needs and what have you, whereas all you got is a concept in your head, give that to a professional and let them use their knowledge and experience and passion.
Otherwise, it could be an incredibly expensive ego trip.
Yeah. When you get it done, and the pink walls and the purple couch didn't quite match. You know, it wasn't quite what you had in mind. So professional. Get the professional in the beginning to get your planning right. Okay, planning prevents piss poor performance. Okay, that is something that continues throughout the project. We'll get a whole bunch of materials: stone, sand, cement delivered to site, and with timber and labor and expertise, we will piece things together to create a staircase, you know. So it comes in
drips and drabs and bits and pieces,
and it gets put together by using the plan, by using the specification that the architect or engineer would have, or interior designer would have allowed for, and then we execute. So the planning aspect is very critical, because what the planning also does is it will design the house according to standards, building standards, South African building standards, and then also to the bylaws and the other requirements that either the estate or the local municipality will have in place specific to this area.
Right.
So how much coverage, how much of your actual roofed area can cover the property? There's a certain amount, say 30 or 40%, depending on the area. In some estates, you might get more or less of that. Your building lines, the
that's
gap
what I was going to say,
between your boundary and where you can build up to. In some estates, you can grab the sugar from your neighbor.
From your neighbor, correct.
So they would have obviously had far relaxed and probably applied for a high density housing scheme, which would then allow for those
more properties
more
per
density,
square. Yes, correct.
So again, that's a town planning aspect of planning. If you're going to go for a bigger project, then you would have to pursue other professionals. Other professionals that you would get involved with is a surveyor. He would determine your boundaries and peg out where your building would be placed on the plot. He would also give the architect contours and if the land's at a slope, what that slope is, so the architect can design, an engineer can use that to design within. A geotechnical survey is something that's also done. It sounds very fancy, but it's basically a soil test. They send core samples down, and it comes up with various different layers of soil, and they can tell if it's soft soil or dense soil and what the density is. They do these penetrometer tests, basically, where they test the density.
I'm not going to try to say that word.
That's fine. Via a certain amount of blows. If we're in, say, beach sand, it'll take 5 blows to go down this distance, and if we're in clay, it'll take 100 blows to go down that distance.
So these houses that you see that are almost on the beach, and the houses who are trying to get the views and are building like 4 stories up, they would have this done, correct?
Yes.
Them especially, or does every
No,
bold,
yeah.
hefty
So in
efforts.
your planning, again, it's one of those things. It's there for a reason. Don't think that, oh, I'm saving money by not having a geotech done, and I'll just, base my build on rational design. And you don't take the site-specific conditions into account. You can find yourself building a house that ends up sliding down the hill and onto the beach in a few years. So
yeah. And does with this procedure and this part of the planning make sure that you're not building on a servitude or too close to a servitude, those sort of things, because sometimes those aren't visible to the naked eye or a person who doesn't know what they're doing.
No, that's a very good question. So your surveyor would determine that area. So the architect could plan based on there's the property, but then the surveyor would go out there and he would have information relating to other things around the property that maybe the architect or the owner might not even have. So he would have access to servitudes or electrical lines or stormwater or sewer or trig beacons or anything that's available. So he would determine that, and then that information is sent to the architect. The architect will then overlay his plans on that detail or information and then design accordingly. And then he'll send that information to an engineer who will then overlay his requirements. And so if the soils are, he'll look at what the architect wants to achieve, and then the engineer will design accordingly, trying to achieve what the architect wants, because a lot of the time the architects put it down on paper and then leave it up to the contractor and the engineer to find a way of making it happen. And look, most often there is a way, but a lot of times when it comes down to that, it works on paper. Why doesn't it work on site? But anyway, so the engineer's role is obviously providing that the structure is going to be structural, the structural integrity of the structure is going to be there. He'll design for that. And always good at this stage of the project is if you are able to get the contractor involved. Okay, so if it's not a process where you're going out to tender and you're asking 3 or 4 guys, if you have your preferred contractor, to get him involved at this stage, this planning stage, is a good one, because ultimately he's the one that's going to be executing the work that the architect and the engineer have designed. So if while they're designing it, the contractor can come in and say, that's a bit excessive, or that's going to be hard to construct, or that's going to be costly to construct, those sort of things, if you are afforded, it's not the norm, it's not regular, but if you are afforded that opportunity and you have a regular contractor, to get them involved there, we find with a lot of our clients that we are able to save them a lot of money in that design process because the contractor's involved at that point. But again, if you're going to tender and what have you,
it's a different story.
You can't do that. You need to rely on the professionals. You then employ a quantity surveyor, which is another professional, to then measure up the plan and give you a bill of quantities based on reasonable competitive industry rates, and he would then draw up a bill of quantities that you could then use as a yardstick to measure against the other guys that you get to tender on the job.
Well, I mean, with having so many estates along the north coast of KZN, very often you buy off plan, or you buy a piece of ground that you build on, and there are preferred architects, contractors, that sort of thing. How do you find working with the states in terms of builds? Because I know you build in Mbetes and Bali, all the states, the different rules and regulations. How do you guys work with that in terms of planning? Does it work well?
Yeah, so obviously each estate will have its architectural language that it will go by, its code, that all architects will have to stay within and design within. All those plans that are saved with the estates, they'll have to be approved by the estate first. So before you even do a council submission, you'll submit to an estate architectural council that will maybe meet once a month or whatever the case is. They'll review the plans, make sure that they fit in with the state guidelines. Then they will approve and recommend the plan for council submission. And thereafter then you'll submit to council. If it's anything out of the estate, you just get your plans ready for council submission, have all the documents and requirements in order, and away you go. So obviously with the estates there is that additional hurdle, but all the architects and professionals that do deal with it are au fait with what materials, how the design must be. You know, there's various little things that they want. You know, Zabali, the kink,
the
for
roof
instance,
structures and all of that. Yes,
the finish, So. Yeah, but the guys do know they are professional, and they act accordingly. So, so that always helps us contractors.
So at the end of the day, it boils down to proper planning. And if you don't plan accordingly, and if you don't follow the sequence of what has to happen for a build, you're going to end up in trouble. Am I correct?
Yeah, look, if you don't do your planning correctly in the beginning, you're definitely setting yourself up for failure. If the planning is done properly, then you're going to be you're going to have a successful project. We certainly encourage people to use the professionals that are available in the area to do the preliminary planning and and answer all the questions that you might have, and to put your mind at ease in terms of the process and what you need to look forward to. Second, look at qualified contractors. We're fortunate to have a qualification in building. You know, I got a diploma, I studied late, but it was to be that one qualified builder in Ballito. That one that, not just an oak, you had a bucky and picked up guys at the garage and I'm a builder. You know, you go and study and you get some paperwork behind you. You know, it's the same for the other professionals that we've been talking about today. They did the same thing. They're passionate about what they do to the point where they went and got some paperwork behind them. So why should the contractor be any different? And again, you're going to be spending probably 10 or 15 times what you've spent on the professionals to get your house ongoing, but you want to go and pick some other guy off the side of the street.
Correct.
Again, we touched, and we will touch on, how your house is your biggest asset, and how people tend to want to skimp and not spend a large or a big portion of their money on their house. They want to try and skimp and save. They think it's a big area where they can save. No, incorrect. It will cost you more money down the line. So again, proper planning prevents piss poor performance.
Absolutely. People, you heard that from Jason. You need to listen. Okay, so now if, say for example, I come to you and I say, I want you to handle it. Is that something that Chapman Building does? Where you will bring in a preferred architect. Obviously you work with a whole group of professionals who are all accredited, but you would handle the entire process for a person. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do. Awesome. Look, every project is different, and we try to stick to a certain model that suits not only us but the other role players in the industry and in the project. But obviously we've got to step outside that and mold and twist and adjust a little bit. So yeah, we are open to it, but like I said, we do have a lot of existing clients and clients that we've had for many years that phone us up and say, you know, I'm coming down in 4 months, I want a new Boma area and a new bra. Send us a few concepts and photos, and they ask us to make sure that it's done when they get down there, you know.
Make it happen, Jason.
So yeah, we get hold of our network and the people that we know work well with us, and you know, we perform with them on their projects and they perform with us on our projects. It's a great relationship, and ultimately we pull these people together, and you know, depending on how that's structured, whether the owner settles them directly or it all goes through us, but we pull the project together and make sure that all the role players are there and everyone performs their bit, and the project gets done when the owner gets back. So
excellent. So there you have it, folks. You heard from Jason how important it is to plan your build correctly and to use reputable businesses in making your dream come true. Till next time, take care, and we'll see you on the next episode of Under Construction with Chapman Building.